In this chapter, you'll explore pulling data from the web even further by learning how to interact with APIs, or application programming interfaces. An API is a set of protocols and routines for building and interacting with software applications. In particular, you'll learn how to use the Open Movie Database API, and in the next chapter, the Twitter API to pull data from both applications, while learning about API interaction best practices. A standard form for transferring data through APIs is the JSON file format, so in this video, we'll focus our attention squarely on these. Then we'll move on to actually getting data from APIs. JSON is an acronym that is short for JavaScript Object Notation. It's a file format that arose out of a growing need for real-time server-to-browser communication that wouldn't necessarily rely on Flash or Java, and was first specified and also popularized by Douglas Crockford, an American programmer and entrepreneur. One of the cool things about JSONs is that they're human readable. That is, they can naturally be read by humans, unlike, for example, pickled files, as we saw in the previous course. As they're human readable, let's check one out. Here you see a JSON from the OMDB, or Open Movie Database API. In particular, this is a JSON containing information about the movie Snakes on a Plane. First, notice that the JSON consists of name-value pairs separated by commas. This will remind you of the key-value pairs in a Python dictionary. We'll see in a minute that, for this reason, when loading JSONs into Python, it is natural to store them in a dict. The keys in JSONs will always be strings enclosed in question marks. The values can be strings, integers, arrays, or even objects. Such an object can even be a JSON, and then you have nested JSONs, but we won't go further into these here. In the case of the Snakes on a Plane JSON, all the values are strings, and we can see this from the quotation marks. The value corresponding to the key title is the title of the movie as a string, Snakes on a Plane. The value corresponding to the key year is the year of release as a string, 2006, and so on. There's the rating, the runtime, director, writers, plot, language, and much more. You'll soon learn how to use the OMDB API and Python to automate retrieval of such data. But first, you'll figure out how to load JSONs from a local directory. Let's say that I had the JSON stored in my working directory as snakes.json. To load the JSON into my Python environment, I would first import the package JSON, and then open a connection to the file and use the function json.load to load the JSON. If I then check the data type of JSON data by executing type JSON data, I see that Python cleverly imported the JSON as a dictionary. To print the key value pairs to the console, I can then iterate over the key value pairs using a for loop. Now it's your turn to test your JSON skills, so get coding.